Welcome back, everyone. Hope you've all been well. I'm going to call this Mega Build, and I'm going to have to break this down to a couple different, videos. I'm 2, maybe 3. I'm doing 6 mods on the car, and in doing that, because of the parts I'm taking off the car to get those to fit, I'm going to do some preventative maintenance as well. So let's just cut to it. Let me show you what we're doing. Starting off, the dreaded Go Fast Bits diverter valve upgrade. This is a pain in the butt. I know every video I've seen on this, people have such a hard time with it. I'm going to go a little more extreme with the amount of things I take off the car just to get to this. And the parts I'm taking off the car make it a lot easier. One of the parts I'm taking off to access this, I'm actually going to replace. My car has like 45 some thousand miles on it. I think it's time for a little bit of preventative maintenance on a few items. This is just another means to that. All right, next we've got a Turner Motorsports intercooler here. Double stack. It's got the nice Turner logo on the front. Hopefully you won't be able to see it. Next, I have an oil catch can. This is a Burger Motorsports. One of the things is where this gets mounted. I don't like it, and I'm probably not going to put it where they want it, so I'm probably not going to use the silicone tubing. I wish I would have done a little more research before I bought this, because I probably would have just got a generic oil catch can, not one that was, comes with a specific part for this car. And in doing that involves something. We'll get to that later. All right, next is the turbo inlet pipe. This connects straight into the turbo, and this is where whatever intake you have, for me it's that Turner carbon intake, that intake fits right into here. So Pure Turbos makes this, awesome piece of gear, aluminum, this is nice, amazing welds. Definitely looks better than the funky looking plastic one. When I did the Turner intake on this car, I thought to myself, does anybody make a turbo inlet? Because the stock one just looks heinous. All right, anyways, moving on. Next, this is the turbo hard pipe. This is the pipe that connects into the turbo, and this here connects to the left side as you're looking at the front of the car, the passenger side. This connects into the intercooler. So this replaces the stock rubber, I don't even know if you want to call it silicone, the stock rubber turbo pipe. This is a pain in the butt to reach, but like I said, we're moving a bunch of things to make this easier. All right. Next, and actually last, well, there's one other part, but the last thing I'm going to do is the Wagner 200 cell cat / downpipe. I did buy new brackets, the new flanges to put these on, and it actually came with the 2 bolts that bolt here onto the car. The other item, the other mod I'm putting on, so that's, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and the 7th one is actually on the car. I forgot to unhook it because I actually had the car already ripped apart. I put it all back together, pulled it apart, put it back together, just to try to find the easiest way to do this. And honestly, there is no easy way. The 7th mod is the electronic wastegate plug harness for a JB4. I haven't seen anybody do a video on it, so I'm throwing that in here too. To get to the diverter valve, I'm taking the water pump completely off the car. So if I'm taking the water pump off the car, I might as well just get a new one. There's a new water pump over there. And I'm also going to replace one of the hoses that connects to the water pump. I'm replacing the thermostat, and I'm replacing the radiator overflow. So the overflow tank, I'm replacing that, and I'm actually going to put a billet aluminum bleeder screw in it. And I don't really want to call this a mod. This is also maintenance stuff as well. But this piece, this is a brand new one, and you don't hear any crunching or anything, and we'll get to that later, but something like this. This connects to the top of the valve cover, the breather, and then this connects right onto here like this. This goes into the turbo inlet pipe like that. Well, just me messing around trying to see where I'm going to put the oil catch can in my, little reconnaissance mission of figuring out where everything's going to go. I'm moving this piece around and it cracks. Completely cracked in the middle. Even got worse. We'll get to that later. Okay. Now let's talk about the fluids. So you are going to be leaking some oil and some coolant in this whole process. Right now I'm actually due for an oil change. So I've got the filter, the gaskets, and 6.5 liters of oil that I'm going to replace. Also, if you're taking off the water pump, you're going to need more coolant because you're going to leak a bunch out. So I have 2 gallons of this, just regular old BMW antifreeze and 2 gallons of distilled water. Distilled water doesn't have all the minerals and stuff in it because you don't want that in your engine. Now, you can get away with not changing the oil. As long as you have, I'd say at least 1 liter of oil, you should be good. But you do need antifreeze, especially if you're taking off the water pump. I'm a big fan of using the stock fluids, so like the coolant, transmission fluid, differential fluid, power steering fluid. Obviously this car has an electric power steering rack, but anyways. Liquid moly is an approved oil for BMW. There's a whole letter that's gone through BMW certification process, so this is an approved oil for BMW. And when it comes to brake fluid, obviously I'm going to use a better brake fluid, something with a higher DOT rating. Oil and brake fluid are the only 2 fluids I don't use stock fluid. Everything else, I use the stock factory fluid. At this point, I already have this completely done. The car's up and running. I've had no issues whatsoever. I try to keep track of all the tools I used. I'm pretty sure this is everything. It's all pretty much basic hand tools with one exception. I'll get to that in a second, but some Torx bits, some external Torx, and this little kit, I picked this up. It's a 23-piece kit, 23-piece in a soda. I picked this up at Lowe's. I don't even remember how much it was, but I use these all the time. There's some 1/4 inch and some 3/8 inch, for the Torx and for the external Torx. So I've got some 1/4 inch ratchets, 3/8 inch, some extensions here and there, a little swivel adapter, pick tools. I used a flathead screwdriver at one point, trusty rusty 10 mil, and socket of course. Then I've got like a 6, 7, 8, I think I used a 9, a 3 mil Allen and a ratchet for the Allen, 5 and 6 mil, some tools associated with changing the oil, so what, a 19, a 17. For the Wagner downpipe, there's a couple tools I used as well, 13 mil. This wrench came in handy because it was long and the angle. You could use a regular wrench, I'll show you in the video. I think I used a 15 as well. I used this set of pliers actually to help get the clamp on the V-band closed. I'll show you that. You definitely, absolutely are going to need a headlamp. Getting under the car and using this to see what you're trying to do, this was vital. I could not have done this project without this. Also, I used some Tessa tape. I rewrapped a couple, wires here and there and things that in the engine bay I wanted to make look pretty. This is the part that's going to make or break your project. These tools right here. With the Go Fast Bits diverter valve, to reach the top right bolt, it's a 5 mil, and for this 5 mil Allen, I use this. And I also tried it with this, which this is just a 5 mil Allen key that I cut a section off. The distance between the front here and the back is 1/2 inch. This is what's going to fit in the Allen bolt, so you're able to turn it, because diverter valves, here, right here on the back side, in the way, is an oil line that goes into the engine block from the turbo. So having something like this, or something like this that can reach at an angle around it or under it, this is vital. I'll put the link to this in the description below if you want to purchase it, or just cut an Allen key. Using this is a little slow going because you only get so much room to turn this thing, but this was possible. This made it a little bit easier. Real quick, before we start tearing the car apart, this isn't a difficult project, all of these things, but it requires time and patience. You have to be patient with some of these parts. If your car is, older like mine, this isn't really that old. It's a 2015. It has a build date of September of 2014. And I'm not gonna lie, I've already replaced a couple things on this car, like it's one of the vacuum lines that connects to the intake here. Some of the plastic parts on this car I've replaced because plastic gets brittle. And let's not kid ourselves here. A lot of the parts we're taking off and putting back on, they're not meant to do that. They're supposed to be put on the car and left there until the car dies. But, some of the things break. I've replaced a few things here and there, but be patient, take your time, use the right tools. All right, get your tools ready. My hands are already dirty because I actually just finished putting the car back together again, but I've wasted enough time. Let's do this. First thing you're going to do is we need to disconnect the negative battery terminal because we're working with electronics and we're working around with some high voltage stuff in the car, especially when we get near the electric power steering. So grab your 10 mil socket, disconnect the negative battery terminal, and something I like to do is I just put a clean, dry, unused cloth underneath. That way there's no accidental contact here. Cool? And something that I saw Keys Motorsports do, which I never really thought about, is tie a shop towel around the latch on the trunk here so it doesn't accidentally get closed. Whatever intake you have, we're going to take the intake off. When you take your cone filter off, always put the cone filter open side down. That way nothing falls inside and nothing gets sucked into the car. Cool? And a way to keep track of what screws go where, you can use your phone and take like a small video clip and say, hey, tiny 3 mil screws go in the intake. That's definitely one way to keep track of things. I strongly suggest you remove the bumper. With doing the intercooler and reaching in and out, you can actually, do things like pass the turbo inlet pipe to yourself from the bottom. It's a lot easier to remove the bumper. Plus, with the amount that you're going to be leaning forward here and doing things, I'd rather not, scratch or, ding up my bumper, even though this thing is trashed anyway, but whatever. You may already know how to do this, but you've got this rubber panel here. This covers up the screws. On the top here, you have 6 T30 Torx. There are no other bolts that look like these, so you shouldn't mistake these. For now, we're done up here. We need to get under the car. This is what I use the little drill for. This is just a little small rechargeable drill, and I've got the little connector bit here where you can put a socket on. I'm going to use this to take the screws off, but I will not use it to put them back on. I don't like using power tools very much. I will to take things off, but I very, very rarely will ever use power tools to put bolts and screws and stuff back on because I don't want to strip things, cross thread, whatever. You know what I mean? Okay, something I like to do, and this is just personal preference, it helps me keep track of things because there are a ton of these 8 mil screws, these body fasteners underneath the car. And I do have my car, it's on 4 jack stands, but I put a piece of painter's tape next to, where the screws are. So when I go back under here, because there are a couple holes that don't have a screw. There's a few here and there, and instead of wasting my own time, I'd rather just know where all the screws go. There are a couple here that you don't even take out. These don't even connect to anything. They connect to whatever these little rubber and plastic pieces are. And I don't know if anybody else's looks like this, but mine are all cracked and broken from the previous owner. The dude bottomed the car out. I know, here's the front passenger corner. Anyways, you guys don't care. But remove all these for the belly pan. All right, aside from the belly pan, there are 4 screws on the front of the bumper itself here that you're going to remove as well. They're where these white tabs are. These 4 screws, you need to remove these as well. Okay, there's the belly pan, and I started from front to back. So I have 22 pieces of tape on here, and I counted 22 of the little body fasteners, the little 8 mil screws. Make sure you wear your eye pro, a face shield or some glasses that have a lot of coverage over your eyes. Cigarette butts, dead bees, all kinds of bugs, rocks, chunks of stuff. All kinds of stuff's going to come out of here when you take this thing off. Okay, because I don't think it's necessary to remove the front wheels doing this, I didn't want to jam the camera in there and try to show you where all the screws are on the fender well. This is the left fender well lining. In order to access the screws to remove the bumper, you have to pull the fender well lining out to reach the screws that are actually, back behind this area. You can see one of the screws, but there's another screw further back in, and I'll try to show you that in a second, but you have to remove the fender well lining to get to them. Just to get the bumper off, you have to take some of these screws off anyway because the bumper attaches to some of these. There are 10 screws that hold these on, both the driver's side and the passenger side. Where the brake cooling duct fits through here, there's a lip on the top of the brake cooling duct. You have to make sure that you pull it out. This screw is actually kind of hidden behind where the brake line is. It's a lot easier to move the wheel, because the car's on jack stands. You can pull the wheel in and out, whatever side you're on. It's a lot easier to reach certain things. Once you have the inner fender well lining removed, where the fender meets the bumper, look inside here, and this is where these two screws are. This is the one you can see, without removing the fender well lining, but the other one back here, this is the one that you can't see, so you got to remove it. You could probably remove some of the screws here and, yank it back, but I don't like bending all this stuff up because, it's just putting stress on other screws and other things in the fender. There's those two screws. It takes a while to get them off, and the back one's hard to reach. All right, we're underneath the car, and this is, so you got the bottom of the intercooler here, this triangle kind of shaped piece. In here, you have to disconnect this plug, the ambient temperature sensor, but just unplug that. If you've got the parking sensors and the windshield washer fluid stuff, the wiper headlight cleaners, whatever it is, just make sure you disconnect that stuff before you go ripping the bumper off. The only thing right now holding the bumper on the car is just hooked into these tabs here. Pull it out from under the tabs. So it did get snagged a little bit. You had to pull these little ends here out from under, part of this bumper support. You'll see. Next, we're going to remove this duct for the oil cooler. Each one has 2 rivets. Bottom right here, one on the top, right there. This is what you're going to need your trim tool for. You got to pop the center out, and then you can pull it out. So once you have the center pulled out, you can yank the center completely out. You have to pull it to the side because of the way that this thing fits in. It fits into a little hole and slot there. Now for the brake cooling duct, there's one rivet there and the other rivet right there. Just take these 2 out and this whole thing will pull out. And then just pull the brake duct out. Next, you have to remove the bumper support here, and this is where those actual 4 bolts are on the bottom of the bumper. These are 2 E10 Torx bits, the external Torx. The bolts on the driver's side was a little hard to get to, but I just pushed the cooling duct over a little bit, jammed my wrench in there, and got it out. So we're on the driver's side now, and this is actually an additional radiator. So driver's side's radiator, passenger side's an oil cooler. So remove these as well, same thing. It's the same 2, we got the little rivet here on the top, one on the bottom, and the same 2 rivets on the brake cooling duct. Now we're going to remove this shroud here. It's like a directional shroud that guides air from the front opening of the bumper into the intercooler. There's nothing holding this in except looking at where the cross brace is. You've got this little tab in the center here. This is the top part of this whole shroud. That part squeezes and fits in there, and all you got to do is just push this in. I mean, I can't do it one-handed, but there's nothing else holding it in. At least there shouldn't be on your car. Like I said, just push this in, pop it down, and then you can just pull the whole thing out. Now, on the bottom of your intercooler, this isn't going to get reused. There's one on the top and there's one on the bottom. The duct we just pulled off the front, that goes into here. So if you're not replacing your intercooler, leave this piece on, but just know that when you put this shroud back on, the little mouth part is on the front of the car, and this piece here on the back goes in the lip right here, like that. So this lip actually holds the bottom of this up in place. Does that make sense? Just in case, you know, like I said, there's another one on the top here. These just clip in. They're not getting reused because the new intercooler doesn't have slots for these to attach, so I'm not worried about it. Now we are under the passenger side. To remove the intercooler from the car, it's a T27, Torx bit here. So we're going to have to remove 2 of these, 1 on each side, and disconnect the charge pipe and disconnect the turbo pipe here. Really is no trick to these. You can just shove a screwdriver in. And then, you can see now that you can just back this pipe off. Now that we got this pipe disconnected, we're going to disconnect the charge pipe on the other side. And I don't know if you can tell, but this is an aftermarket charge pipe, which you can actually completely remove the whole clip. So I'm just going to pop the whole clip off. And I don't know if I can actually even back the charge pipe off of the intercooler. I tightened the extra section of charge pipe after I had attached it to the intercooler, so it's firmly in place on here. This is that other T27. Remove the Torx screw on the passenger side. Try not to drop it in your mouth. There's these tabs here on the bottom of the intercooler, and they connect into the front of into the fan shroud here. With the intercooler and all the shroud and stuff removed, see how easy that turbo pipe is to get to now? It's right here. Next thing we have to remove is this panel right here. And the only thing holding in are 3 8mm body screws. Once you undo the screws, you have to pull it towards the front because it's actually tucked in to part of the subframe brace here. That'll wrap up this video. I didn't want to make it too long. For now, we're done underneath the car. The next video, we're going to move up top. We're going to remove a couple parts, which will give us direct access to the boost pipe and the turbo inlet pipe. Once we remove those, that'll give us easy access to the water pump and the thermostat. We're also going to have direct access to the plug for that electronic wastegate, so we'll get that connected into the JB4. When you connect the electronic wastegate plug, and you connect those wires in your JB4, if you do happen to make a mistake and plug them into the wrong ports, I have a solution for you. I'll include that in the video as well. So in the second video, we're going to do the boost pipe, the turbo inlet pipe, the go fast bits diverter valve, the water pump, the thermostat, the electronic wastegate wiring for the JB4. I think that'll be it for the second video. The third video will be the downpipe, refilling the cooling system to make sure you get that procedure done properly. Then refilling the oil if you need to, and then it should just be putting the car all back together. I think that should be good. Cool? Later. Well, how about now? Just go to the next video. Click one of these things for the next video. I don't know where I'm going to put it. Cool? Later.